Hello, good morning, and welcome to this Logistics Manager webinar sponsored by Ocado Intelligent Automation. I'm James McLaughlin, Editor of Logistics Manager, and your host for today's session, which is entitled Move Less, Pick More Inside an Automated Warehouse. The pressure to do more with less has never been greater. In today's warehouses, efficiency is becoming more and more of an imperative, especially as costs continue to rise. But traditional methods of boosting productivity often come with trade-offs, such as the requirement of additional labour, square footage, or capital investment. As demand patterns shift and delivery expectations rise, organisations are beginning to rethink what agility and scalability should really look like on the warehouse floor. Many operations remain tethered to static systems and manual workflows that can't flex with a business's needs. These setups often lead to inefficient processes and avoidable costs that erode margins over time. By contrast, solutions that take advantage of mobile robotics open the door to smarter, leaner fulfillment. It's here, at the intersection of adaptability and automation, that companies are unlocking new levels of performance without the need for sweeping infrastructure changes. To learn more about how one retailer is reshaping its warehouse operations with cutting-edge mobile robotics, I'm joined today by Jeff Larson, Director of Solutions at Ocado Intelligent Automation. He will be speaking to Ryan Hetzler, Director of Operations at Performance Health, who will be sharing his first-hand experience of the before and after of implementing warehouse automation. From stress on the floor to streamlined fulfillment, this will be an honest, practical look at automation that's working right now and the measurable impact it's having. Over the course of this webinar, you'll hear about what drove Performance Health to seek automation in the first place, how perfect size packaging and in-aisle optimization work together to eliminate waste, reduce footsteps, and drive major productivity improvements, and the realities of deploying mobile robots in the warehouse. At this point, I'd just like to encourage viewers to ask questions throughout the presentation via the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Please remember to submit your name, job title, and company name when doing so. I'll pose as many of these questions as possible to Jeff and Ryan in the time available following the presentation. Also, a recording of this webinar will soon be made available to view on demand via logisticsmanager.com, so look out for that. And with that, I'll now hand over to Jeff to start the presentation section of this webinar.
Thank you, James. We are coming to hear you live. I'm Jeff Larson. I lead our solutions organization here at Ocado Intelligent Automation. And today I'm joined by Ryan Hetzler, who runs operations for Performance Health. 3 years ago, Performance Health, they began their automation journey to improve warehouse fulfillment operations, and they selected Ocado as one of the providers to help support this transformation. So as we go through this webinar today, we're going to talk a little bit about their automation journey. We're going to talk about the benefits that Performance Health realized. We're going to talk about the challenges that they faced and what the future is going to bring. But before we get into Performance Health, I think it'd be good if I just give you a quick overview and an introduction to Ocado. Ocado formed in 2000, and we had the goal of becoming the world's largest online grocer. But we quickly realized that online grocery is hard. To remain competitive, you have to find ways to keep costs extremely low. In the early 2000s, we experimented with a ton of automation. I mean, everything from shuttle systems to queue-based storage solutions, conveyor with pick-to-light. I mean, we even had a monorail going through our facilities at one point. But despite all of this automation, we just could not get the performance that we needed to achieve the pick rates and the throughput that was necessary to remain cost competitive. So we set out and we developed our own cubic ASRS solution, which we now call the Ocado Storage and Retrieval System, or the OSRS. This solution, it maximized throughput, it improved picking speeds, and it really minimized the site footprint that was required to get this volume out the door. And in 2017, we made this tech available to grocers all over the world. As this tech stack continued to advance, we decided in 2022 that this technology should be made available to every market, not just grocery. And as part of this decision, Ocado acquired 6 River Systems, which added 2 new OMRS and a mobile fulfillment application to the Ocado platform. And this became the foundation for what we now call the Ocado Mobile Robotic System, or OMRS. The 6 River Systems solutions, it improves fulfillment processes without a high capital investment or large changes to your existing facility. And Performance Health was the first organization that made an investment in our technology post the Ocado acquisition. So what you're seeing here on the screen, this is Chuck. Chuck is our autonomous cobot solution that's designed to improve each's and small cases fulfillment. It does so by intelligently grouping work together on a cart and minimizing work through dynamic handoffs between the associates on your floor. This was the solution that Performance Health ultimately selected to help solve some of the challenges that they were facing in their operation. So before I get into the presentation and we talk a little bit about the benefit that Performance Health saw, would love to ask you a quick trivia question. In totality, the Chucks have traveled enough distance to A, travel to the moon and back 4 times, B, circle the Earth 30 times, C, drive from New York to Los Angeles 60 times, or D, walk 325,000 golf courses. And the answer is, and I'll come in here, looks like 46% of you did get it correct. If you said A, Chucks have traveled close to 2 million miles helping to drive improvements to customers all over the globe. Although technically all of those answers are correct as they were all less than 2 million miles in totality. All right, I think though I have given enough of an introduction here. Ryan, before we jump into the solution, could you perhaps just walk us through and give us an overview about Performance Health and what it is that you do?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. You will see our portfolio of items that we own or manufacture. They're on the screen. We are the largest and global manufacturer and distributor of products to the rehab and sports medicine market. Headquartered in Chicago, Illinois, have operations both in the U.S. and internationally. So the operation you're seeing today is in Indianapolis. We sell to leading healthcare facilities and practitioners, physical therapists, athletic trainers, chiropractors, and then we also ship direct to consumer.
Excellent. And can you give a brief overview, Ryan, of the facility in Indianapolis that we currently support?
Yeah, so our facility here in India is 460,000 square feet. We have just put up some B&A racking with our expansion into the whole building. We have about 22,000 total pallet locations inside the facility. We run 2 shifts. Staffing is around 140 teammates on site here. Our infrastructure, we run a Manhattan WMS system. We do have pack size, and that is a box first solution. So we have 2 X5 machines and 1 EM7, 35 AMRs, Chuck robots in the warehouse. And we utilize Cognite Ops as our warehouse optimization, labor planning for the AI reporting. Overall, we do between 11 and 15,000 lines a day, which is equivalent to 5 to 7,000 orders or about 7 to 9,000 cartons. 95% of what we ship out is parcel shipments, and the remaining goes out LTL. So
Excellent. Thank you. And Ryan, now I remember when I was at your facility in 2022 taking this video, so pardon those on the call who are seeing this a bit grainy. I wasn't taking this with the expectation that it would one day appear on a webinar. But Ryan, do you think you could tell me a little bit more about what we're seeing and what led you on your journey to introduce automation into your operation?
yeah, so the current video you're seeing, there's an old bread cart that has many different box sizes in it, and we had 35 total box sizes at that time, and people were having to pull these all throughout the warehouse. There's a lot of injuries for strain, for push, pull, and all that. So customers were also complaining that we were getting too much air in the box. So looking at this, we had 140 of these bread carts throughout the warehouse, and we said we've got to do something different, and started looking at the Chuck solution with Jeff and his team, and it was game over from there.
I love to hear that. But as you were exploring the Chuck solution with us, did you have any initial concerns?
Yeah, there was a couple of concerns. One of them was we use an outdated WMS system. It's an older Manhattan platform, so was worried about the integration with that. The learning curve of the team with introducing automation, you just never know how that's going to go in a distribution setting. So that, and then integration with the pack size machines that we had just put in right as we were exploring the Chuck option.
Yeah, how did that integration actually go? And I know we might touch base upon that a little bit later in today's discussion, but since you mentioned it now, I guess it was an old WMS system that we were integrating with. There was new technology that we were going to be communicating with. What was that experience like?
It was a heavy lift from the Ocado and the Performance Health IT team. I mean, overall, it was much better than I think any of us anticipated. How the communication is, the messages travel back and forth. So um, it was a big lift, but definitely helped with rolling out the chucks to the operation.
Yeah. And Ryan says it's a big lift, and I'm sure it was for his organization, but we'll show you some timeframes of what that looked like later on as we go through this presentation. I will tell you the Performance Health team did just an incredible job of giving the right level of investment into this solution to ensure that we would have no issues upon go live. Last question I have on this particular slide, Ryan, is, I've often heard from customers, hey, I have this massive pick cart that can carry so many orders. I just don't understand how a smaller cart is going to drive improvements. Did this thought ever cross your mind during the initial design process?
Of course, but and looking at how we were going about things and what the Chuck solution brought to us, it definitely eliminated the fatigue factor throughout the shift, give the team a little more consistent with their productivity, and actually it gave them a lot more tools to use to improve quality and productivity at the same time.
Excellent. Thank you. And like you said, the journey actually didn't start with Ocado. It started with pack size. And for those of you who don't know, Ocado Intelligent Automation does have a partnership with pack size, and they enable these custom sized boxes to be built on demand, and they're tailored to the exact size of each order. Brian, I won't speak to the benefit. Perhaps you can talk a little bit about the benefit that the pack size solution brought to your operation initially.
The benefit was huge. I mean, so the resource allocation. I mean, we had a lot of indirect labor that would pre-build those 35 box sizes that we had, and there was a lot of pre-printing of labels, building of carts, and all that. So pack size, came in. They have the print and apply. They're right sizing the boxes. So we have I mean, there's only potential room for 13% void fill in that box, so they're very tight. So we eliminated a lot of costs with labels, with void fill, and overall the labor that we were spending on everything.
That's great. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits here that we saw. And we love partnering with PackSize in our solutions. And one of the reasons that we like partnering with PackSize is because when you cut a perfect size container, you can fit more capacity onto each chuck run. And if you can fit more capacity, you're naturally going to get more density as you move throughout the aisle. And you pair that with the software that's backing our solution to create these really dense pick runs. And we see an added benefit working together with that pack size solution. So 1 + 1 might equal 3 instead of 2 in this case. And the results kind of speak for themselves here. I mean, we started, I think your initial operation when you were picking with those manual carts was operating at about 121 units per hour. And we're now up to 247 units per hour today. So we've more than doubled the overall performance of the site. And if we look at different categories here, there are three main buckets where we've seen an improvement in performance. And the first time is that pick task time. So initially, remember from that video, the woman had to find the location of where the pick was happening, and then she had to place that into the box. Sometimes it was a little bit high that she had to reach up for. You have quite a bit of units that you're grabbing at the pick face. I think you're grabbing on average 4 units with every pick that you make. It was taking about 44 seconds from the time that you stopped at the pick face to the time you started to move to the next location. When the Chuck solution came in and was implemented, this was reduced to now 26.5 seconds at the pick face, partially because you have the screen that's on Chuck that's showing an image of the product that you need to pick. It has lights that are pointing to the side of the location, it has lights telling you where you need to put it, and the cart itself is a bit more ergonomic than that massive cart that we saw early on in the presentation. The in-aisle walk, this was also reduced quite dramatically. It was initially spending 46.5 seconds walking in between picks. So the time you were spending going from one pick to another, because you just had this huge spread of SKUs throughout your facility and orders with only 2 lines or 3 lines in each order. So naturally you'd have to walk a far distance to pick them because it was unlikely that they would be grouped together close in the facility. that ended up being reduced to about 23.7 seconds with the Chuck solution. And part of this comes from the fact that we had the pack size, which was increasing the number of containers that was on a single cart. Part of this came from the fact that we have dynamic zoning in place, which we can pass bots from one associate to the next if there's a long distance that they have to travel. And part of it became because of just some new software functionality that we've released that has made it more efficient in terms of in-aisle handoffs, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And then we've reduced what we call the long walk. So the long walk is all of the out of aisle travel. So before the Ocado solution was put in place, we were spending about 25 seconds per line moving carts outside of the aisle, taking things to particular takeoff locations, bringing things to the hospitals, going back to the cart build area to go build the cart. Once the Chuck solution was implemented, that was reduced to 7.7 seconds. And really, the only time that you have is the time it's taking you to go from one chuck to the next chuck after you finish your pick run. So, Ryan, did I miss anything there on the actual, I guess, performance benefits on this slide?
No, I think you're spot on. It's worth calling out that is a big jump, and that jump was pretty immediate. I mean, it wasn't a gradual increase in our units per hour or lines per hour. It was within a 3-week period. So it was, you could see it right away. So it was nice.
However, I know that your decision, because you told me many times, it wasn't just about the pick rates. There was more to it. There was other value that we brought to the operation. I know the cart, the physical size and structure of the cart was an attraction to the performance health team. Can you talk a little bit more about why the physical truck itself made sense in your operation?
Yeah, so we were able to get more boxes on there. We do have bigger items that we ship out. Get more boxes on there, and it cubed out each level of the chuck. So with the 30-inch wide shelves, and then being adjustable, you can have two, you can have three. So they have all kinds of different attachments to be able to help us out with that. Also, the integrated mobile printer, to me, that was one of the biggest wins of all of it. Being able to print our pack list at the time of pick and not have to send it to a pack station to touch it, scan it again. The ladder attachment, so the team's not having to walk all the way down the aisle and get a ladder. And then just like I said, over the overall order capacity that's on the chuck, we can get more than 8 orders on a chuck.
It's pretty impressive. Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely a good fit for your operation.
Yes.
How did your associates react when it was first implemented?
We did training pretty significant ahead of time. So we got the Ocado team sent us a chuck to actually get in front of our team for about 3 weeks before they started arriving. But it's a very simple process. Training time is minimal. It's very streamlined, and they actually enjoyed it more because they weren't having to pull the cart. They were able to follow it, and it actually showed them pictures of the product that they were picking that they never had before. So it gave them more confidence in their job. So it definitely helped the team as a whole.
Absolutely. Um, so we like to say that Chuck has a system-directed induct process. Now, I'd be happy to talk about this, Ryan, if you want me to add on some color commentary, but I'll ask you maybe if you could just share what's going on here in the video as Chuck kind of arrives into this induct location.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things about Chuck and pack size. So Chuck comes up, it's stopping right there and actually sending a message over to the pack size machine saying, build these boxes for me particularly. And then it goes over to be inducted. So nobody has to stand there, touch it, scan it, or do anything like that. It sends the message automatically. And then you'll see as the video turns here, the boxes are already coming down the conveyor in order, ready to be scanned onto the chuck. So it is definitely streamlined, put less stress on the pack size machine because it is just building for each chuck that is up there. So we're not overbuilding, starting, stopping all the time. And definitely help the team because it is directional for the inductor. It tells them where to put it. We have put to light on there. It shows you the orientation of the box. I mean, it's an excellent solution.
So and I'll add on a couple of things there. When that chuck is coming up to that point where it's sending the message to pack size and saying these are the containers that I'm looking for, it's really looking for three things. It's looking at what are my at-risk orders for missing the SLAs right now, and it's giving those a higher priority. Then it's saying, okay, based upon my orders that are at risk, how do I build the most efficient cart run around there? How do I take the least amount of steps throughout my facility? And then it's also balancing that out against congestion on the floor. If you have aisle one has 10 chucks in it, it's going to try to allocate to aisles 2 through 20 in this instance because it doesn't want to create too much, it doesn't want to create a bottleneck in your operation. And additionally, that calling point can be set as far in advance as needed for this pack size integration so that by the time that you approach the induct location, you have a queue of boxes waiting for you. And that's why we put it in this location because as you can see here, the boxes are being cut for this first chuck. And as soon as that chuck drives off, the next chuck will come into place and the boxes are already there waiting for them. There's very little downtime in waiting. So you can turn those chucks, get them on the floor so that we can use the chucks to drive productivity as opposed to just sitting and waiting and queuing.
Yep.
Oh, so Ryan, your operation got a variety of configurations. You have fast movers, you got slow movers. But we launched multiple pick strategies at your site. So traditionally, we had this process called sweep, which the chuck would meet at a meeting point that's outside of the aisle. The associate would badge in, and then they would pick all of the picks in that aisle. And then at the end of the aisle, it would make a decision. Do I hand off to another associate or do I stay engaged with this bot and move to the next pick? But we recently put in for your fast moving area, we put in our rendezvous strategy. And this is the ability to, instead of meeting at a meeting point outside of the aisle, you meet the chuck directly at the pick face and you have the ability to hand off within the aisle to another chuck if there's another one nearby when it makes sense. And the system is directing you and telling you you have to go work on this bot at this location. Um, I know, I know you know the value that this has brought to your operation, but can you talk to the audience here a little bit about the value that this has brought to the operation, being able to drive different pick strategies depending on the speed of the movers in your aisles?
Yeah, no problem. So, as you said, configurability. Adding this in, we didn't have to add it to the whole building. We added it into our high moving aisles, which helped eliminate congestion in all the aisles. And we saw about a 10% lift in our already elevated units and lines per hour. So, made a huge difference, eliminated the walking. And it's like a supervisor on the floor as well. So it manages the pickers and says, hey, I don't want you walking this far. Go grab this chuck at this location, which may be 10 feet away or it may be 20 feet away, but it's going to make the decision for the picker. And that to me has been huge for our leadership team to not have to manage the people in the aisles because Chuck is out there doing it for us.
Absolutely. And this is the system itself really is doing that management. After every single pick, it's assessing a host of variables on the floor. It's looking at everything from where the chucks are located on the floor to what the current pick rates are to how long it takes you to walk from one chuck to another chuck and saying, does it make good economic sense to hand off, or does it make good economic sense to just stay engaged with this bot? For folks that are slower movers, it might make sense to stay engaged because Chuck is going to help pace them. For faster moving associates, it's going to potentially tell you to hand off because it knows that you're going to be able to quickly get to that next spot that's maybe 20 feet or 3 meter or 5 meters down the aisle. So Ryan, I looking at this chart here, it's always one that I get really excited about to share. We release a software update every 6 to 8 weeks for the Chuck AMR solution, and Performance Health is probably the best at taking advantage of those releases every single time they come out. I know you sit down with our customer success organization, you review what's going to be released during that LTS launch and you say, these are the features that are going to help out my operation. I want to make sure that they're turned on and they're configured. And the proof's in the pudding here. I mean, over the past 12 months, we've seen the rates go from 200 units per hour to 250 units per hour. I mean, it's over a 20% improvement, close to 25% improvement And it's driven mostly by the software. I know you've made some operational enhancements in there, but I think the software makes a big portion of why these rates have increased over the past 12 months. But it's probably better if I hear it from you. Can you tell me a little bit about, what type of software enhancements have we launched and how have these updates helped your operation?
Oh, where do I start, Jeff? So no, it's a very good point. The software releases. So this wasn't a solution that was put in place and just forgotten about from there. Like here it is, use it. The 6RS team, they always come in curious. They have a huge imagination and say, okay, what can we do next? And it's seen whenever you get the release updates. So the configurability of what can be done, we have expanded over to, we're doing put away now on the chuck, which we didn't even have in scope when we started this. So all of our items going to our active pick locations that are smaller, just put it on a chuck and I'm going to put it away a lot quicker. And it allows my pickers to then jump over and do put away at the same time. That was a huge one. We're trying to drive almost all of our business. We're transitioning our LTL business onto Chuck now, and so those things have been what's driving us forward in the right direction. Exceptions now print. We don't have to do research on them. It gives an exception ticket at the time of takeoff. So I could go on for the next 2 hours about the improvements.
Absolutely. I mean, the rendezvous feature was one that we launched, of course, that we put into the facility. I know we had some movement improvements and just logic of how the truck travels throughout the facilities. We had updates into charging and how charging was going to take place. So your bots are on the floor, they're active more, so you can pick more with those bots. There's a host of features, and I'm sure we can go through them with anyone who's interested to hear more about them on this call. But one thing I really want to emphasize is you heard Ryan say, hey, we've been able to take on the put away functions in his facility. So Performance Health has not only seen an increase in pick rates, but they've also seen an increase in volume over time. And as a result of our performance going up, Ryan's been able to leverage his same fleet, the same fleet he bought multiple years ago, to be able to support that increase in volume and be able to support a new function in put away without having to add any additional robots to his operation.
Yep.
All right, this was a really, really interesting one because I was asked to talk a little bit about commissioning and go live. And I started looking back at the data as we prepared for this webinar, and honestly, it kind of slipped my mind just how quickly we got through the commissioning and go live process. But I found that we were up and running 8 weeks after you signed the contract. For this audience, I should call out that that is exceptionally fast. And you can see here on the screen some of the work that we would normally do post-contract signature. Performance Health was already prepping for a month in advance, getting ready for this, knowing that they were going to go live and sign this agreement. Um, Normally would be about a 12 to 16 week process, but just goes to show it is absolutely possible to go live quicker when we put the right level of focus and effort into it. But Ryan, I'd love to ask, I know we talked about this briefly earlier, but did you experience any major challenges at time of go live?
No, it actually went a lot smoother and a lot quicker. We had planned on moving 4 to 6 chucks a week into live production, but by the end of week 2, we had all 35 chucks up and going, and the team was performing at the pace we were expecting. So definitely a very smooth, very very simple rollout, and seen nothing but benefit since then.
Love to hear it. We often hear though that securing investment for this type of solution can be challenging. Um, and I know you were a huge champion of this solution early on. How did you champion support from your exec team to sign off on this investment?
I think the productivity piece alone really is the ROI on that is easily explained,
Mhm.
but also just explaining the value add to the customer, the quality aspect of being able to have the picture of the product on there and get that direction, and then just I think overall what it's going to just bring to the business. It's going to help us grow without adding a bunch of people. and just throwing bodies at it. Now we have Chuck that helps us just kind of smooth out the workload and manage SLAs for us.
Amazing. So I want to ask you what's next, but before I do, what do you think has been the single greatest benefit outside of just the pick rate that the Chuck solution has offered to your operation?
I think just the directional support with the staff on the floor. I mean, it definitely helps whenever they're not having to come up and ask, "Hey, what's next? What do I need to do next?" That the team knows it will give them, "Hey, go to aisle 16 and get this, Chuck." So it's going to help drive the productivity, but it also doesn't leave them just wandering around the building looking for work.
Amazing. So what is next, Ryan, for performance health?
Uh, so we do have, we've been talking, and at ProMat we did see Porter. Definitely exploring that and how we can partner that with Chuck in our building. Always looking to explore other options as well, and I know that also exploring the OSRS solution. So I think time will tell.
I love to hear that, Ryan. Absolutely do. Um, So what's next for OIA? I don't know if I should be asking myself this question, but I will ask myself this question. I am really excited because I want to talk about the launch of Porter, which is our case picking and pallet moving solution. And I won't go into the Porter solution in too much detail, but you can kind of see from the video what this solution actually is. But Porter is going to be our Porter is going to enable us to lift cases and pallets up to 3,500 pounds or 1,600 kilos. It's going to be able to move all pallet types from any direction. So you'll be able to move your GMA, your EUR, your EUR2. It can be open or closed, sort of stringers, no stringers. It could be wood, it could be plastic. The bot itself is light and nimble. There is no counterbalance whatsoever. It only weighs 350 pounds or 160 kilos itself, so it can move through tight and narrow aisles. It can lift pallets that are stacked back to back. It can lift empty pallets off of the floor. And the best part about the Porter application might be that it's a brand new robot, but it's going to be powered by that same software stack that Ryan just spoke about, the same software stack that he loves, the same software stack that we've been improving over the past 10 years to add value to his operation. That software stack is going to drive our case picking operations with this Porter. And because the Porter has those forks on there, it's able to do the point-to-point movements of the pallets as well. So we can take the pallets from your inbound dock door and do a cross-dock operation and move them to your outbound dock door. Or if you do have an OSRS application with us, we can take those pallets from your inbound dock door and we can bring them directly to the decant station so that they can get loaded into your grid. We do expect Porter to have a limited launch at the end of this year and general availability coming in the first half of 2026. So with that, I will pause here. I am always available if anyone has any questions or they want to email me, they want to talk in more detail. I'm always open to a conversation and no sales pitch. If you just want to talk about the industry, if you want to talk about our solutions, I would love to get into more detail with you. So James, I think with that, I can pass it back to you for questions.
Jeff, thank you very much for that excellent presentation. Before we get into the audience Q&A, I've just got a few rapid fire questions here. So first off, and this is just a bit of fun, but we heard a lot about robots today. What would you guys say is the best movie or TV show about robots?
Ryan, if you don't agree with me, I'm going to be disappointed right now. So I don't know who should go first on this one.
I'll go first.
Okay.
Short Circuit.
Oh,
John
okay.
5.
All right, that's fair. That's a good one. I was gonna say Jetsons, but since we're picking something a little more serious, I'll go. I'd say Ex Machina. I think it'd be hard pressed to find a better movie out there.
Good choices there. Good choices. Um, and what's an industry buzzword that both of you secretly can't stand?
Um, I can't stand that everyone says that they have AI without actually tying it to the value that it brings to the operation. I'm okay saying you have automated intelligence. I think it's the way of the future, but tie it to value. Tell me how that's going to help my operation, how it's going to benefit my performance.
I would say mine would be when people use the phrase low hanging fruit, because If it was that easy, it'd be done already. There's definitely some work that's going to go into fixing it. So it's obviously not that low hanging.
That's a very good point, actually. Um, and what's a common misconception you've come across when it comes to warehouse automation?
Oh, that's an easy one for sure. Warehouse automation isn't just it's not a magic wand. It's not something that you can just drop and all of a sudden it's going to work. It does take someone like Ryan to run the facility and motivate the team to adapt this new technology. And when you adapt it correctly and you implement it correctly, you will see the performance numbers that you see are here with the performance health team. You'll see that benefit and that increase over time. But if you just expect the system to get better on its own without putting in any effort whatsoever, it's not going to happen. It does require a strong ops leader to help support it.
I think from my perspective, most people assume that if you bring in AMRs or robots or anything like that, that it's going to replace them and get rid of their job. Uh, it's meant to make their job easier and drive the business and drive results. So it's not meant to get rid of them or replace them. It is meant to make their job easier.
And finally, one for you, Ryan. What's one thing you wish everyone knew about performance health?
I'd say, it's our company slogan, right? We help people feel good, perform better, and live their best lives.
Cool.
Brilliant. And for Jeff, can you tell us maybe one upcoming feature we can expect from Chuck AMR?
Yeah, probably should vet this through the product organization before I share it. So I think if I communicate this, Ryan's going to be asking me when I can have it next. But let's just say there's some cool functionality coming out related to cycle counting, and I'll leave it there.
Brilliant. Well, that leads us nicely into the interactive Q&A section of the webinar. For our viewers, now is the time to submit your questions if you haven't done so already. Um, First off, we've got a question here for Ryan. What kind of metrics did you track during ramp up to measure success?
So lines per hour, units per hour, and then the bridge that they have for Chuck, the analytics on that are amazing. So we had to go through, being an existing building already, checking the Wi-Fi, making sure the handoff with the Chucks was working correctly. So there's a lot of different areas we had to look at, but the analytics platform inside of the bridge, uh, every tool is in there that you need. You can track the walking, you can track the move time, grab time, scan time. So it they provide the tools to look at everything, but it was mostly looking at the quality and the overall the pick rate and the value add and reduced walking throughout the building.
Brilliant. Um, this one might be one more for you, Jeff. We all know that peak can be a difficult time for logistics, and predicting peaks is not quite as simple as it once might have been. So, how does Chuck handle operational peaks or sudden volume spikes?
Absolutely. So we have a number of ways that we manage this. So when we do our initial assessment, we are looking at historical trends in the data. So we do ask for about a year's worth of data. If we can get more than a year's worth of data, fantastic. And we start to identify where there's little peaks in the volume. Now, interestingly enough, performance health, they did have a small peak season that was in, I think, the December, January, February timeframe, ski season. Everyone's twisting ankles, going out and skiing and snowboarding. But it wasn't enough really where it justified the fact that we needed to come in with extra support or extra bots. But certainly in other industries, we could see peak to mean ratios that could be 3, 4, 5 to 1 from where they normally are. And we also have industries that do flash sales, and all of a sudden on a random day, you could see a 3x, 2x surge in volume. So what we offer for those customers are two different models. We have a seasonal chuck rental, which is if we have a known fixed season, so your Black Friday and Christmas time of year, where you can do a short-term rental on the chucks. And so we send those chucks to your facility every peak season. So you have a little bit of excess capacity on your floor to be able to accommodate that known that known increase. And we also offer what's called our Flex Chuck program. And our Flex Chuck program is the ability for us to keep a small fleet of chucks at your site that you could then utilize on a per diem basis. So if you do have an unexpected surge in volume, you could turn on those chucks for the day pay a small premium for using those trucks for that day so that you can ensure that you can always keep up with your throughput. We make sure that in our designs, though, we're never designing to the average day. We're always designing to some threshold above that average day. And we'll be able to show you through our data and through our analysis, what that carryover analysis is going to look like if you never add any bots, what that carryover of work is going to look like if you added seasonal rentals, and then what that carryover would look like if you had a small flex truck fleet at your operation, so that you could be assured from day one that you're going to be able to achieve and meet your SLA expectations with your customers.
Brilliant. Ryan, going back to something you touched on a little bit earlier, which is fear of replacement. We've got a question here from Ger Convery, who's asking from Henderson Group in Northern Ireland, asking, was there not a fear of replacement among the employees when discussing and implementing automation? And if so, how did you overcome that?
So yes, there was. I mean, obviously we had attrition happen. We just got to where we didn't have to replace employees as we went through it. But there were other areas of the business that we were managing with temp labor, stuff like that. So we were able to move our resources and our team around. Obviously, the growth of our business as well allowed us to reallocate those resources instead of bringing in new teammates and training them.
I think I can add on a bit to that because I visit quite a few warehouses in this particular job, and as I drive through these campuses, I see sign after sign after sign outside of every one of these doors posting what the pay rate would be to attract talent to these facilities. And it's funny, it goes up 50 cents one day, a dollar the next day. It is so hard to find talent right now on the market that a lot of times, truly, like, we're not just selling this. You're not necessarily replacing talent. You're filling the void of capacity that you can't find on the market right now.
Absolutely.
Yep.
We've got another question here that I'm actually really interested to hear the answer to. So this comes from Jordan Robertson, who's a marketing executive at 24 IT Services, who's interested to know, how do you protect systems and hardware from cybersecurity threats?
Yeah, so we do have all sorts of safety security certifications that we adhere to. We do keep up to date with them. It's fantastic now being part of the Ocado organization, as they have a host of IT personnel that are constantly looking at the system and running tests on our system to ensure that we're not going to have those risks. I don't have the exact compliance thresholds that we adhere to on this call, but if it's something that you would like a follow-up on, please just shoot that in the message to logistics management. And what we'll do is we'll get you a follow-up on those certifications that we adhere to ensure that we're not at risk for any cybersecurity attacks.
Brilliant. We've got a question here for Ryan. Stuart Mickey is asking, what version of Manhattan is Performance Health running this integration on?
So funny enough, it's Manhattan 2011. So it's definitely an outdated, unsupported version of Manhattan. And that was our biggest concern was, will we be able to do this with this platform? The 6RS team and our IT team made it extremely easy on me, but I know they had to make some things work. But yeah, it is an older version, and even with Porter and everything, we wouldn't have to update our Manhattan to make that work. So it's very
I'll call
nice.
out really quickly, just in case folks are asking 6RS and what that stands for. 6RS is Six River
Sorry,
Systems. So Six River
sorry.
Systems was the organization that originated and built the Chuck product line, but then was taken over by Ocado in 2023. I know old habits die hard. It's still hard for me to always say Ocado Intelligent Automation versus 6RS, but those two can be interchangeable for purposes of today's webinar. So if we say 6RS, just know we're talking about the AMR solutions.
Right. We've got another couple of questions here from Stuart McKee. This one's for you, Jeff. Does Chuck dynamically zone the warehouse based on volumes?
Yeah, it absolutely does, because naturally, as you have more volume in one particular zone, you're going to have more orders that are allocated to those chucks. So you're going to see more chucks go into that floor. And what's nice about it is associates do not have static zones. I mean, we could set it up that way. We absolutely, and we have before in the past, but it's not how we traditionally like to run the system. The system is going to move the bots to where the work that needs to get out the door is, and then it's going to direct the associate what is the most logical place for you to be right now so that I can maximize my pick rates. And it will tell you, get out of aisle 2, go to aisle 3, get this exact robot, and then do what that robot tells you to do next. And so you don't have to have a supervisor that's on the floor saying, you're now in zone 2, and they're just waiting for work in zone 2 to come to them. The bot is telling them where they need to be so that they ensure that there's always work ready to go. So we minimize that idle time in the aisle by the associates.
And the final question we have here from Stuart, this one's maybe to both of you. What's the training time for new staff on the truck?
I'll let
35
Ryan
minutes.
go for it.
I mean, it's 35 minutes. I mean, it's very simple. It's straight to the point, and then you spend the next couple of hours following them around, just explaining some of the products. But I mean, before picking with the RF guns and the tickets, it was 2 to 3 weeks. But I can bring an employee in today, and they will be picking at rate tomorrow. Pretty easy.
Yeah, and I'll also say the Chuck has instructions on the screen. It can tell you exactly what you need to do. If you need to split a case, it'll tell you to split a case. It gives you the volume that you have to pick. It tells you the exact location that you should put this into. Our system also, I will talk about, one of the things that's great about it is it's a very visual interface. And so Ryan has a lot of individuals on his team that speak Burmese. And Burmese is their primary language, speak very little English. And we did go through an exercise actually of launching a Burmese translation on the screen, but the associates kind of looked around it because it was as simple as just looking at the image. The image said scan, you knew that you had to scan. The image showed an associate picking, you knew that you had to do the picking step at this point. It showed you where to place it by a green light that was on the screen saying this is the position that you need to place it in. So there's very little dependence on actually reading the language that's on the screen because it's a very visual interface. It just makes it easy for anybody to learn the system.
Brilliant. And obviously you guys are both US based, but Ocado is obviously a global company. And I had the pleasure of seeing Ocado's automation in action at Intralogistics in the UK in Birmingham earlier this year. So Gordon Anderson here is asking, where can you buy AMRs in the UK and what kind of prices would they be?
Yeah, so I mean, Ryan, unless you really want to take a stab at answering this one, I think it's directed more towards me. Yeah, so we do have global sales teams that are all over the world. I think if we'll get you the sales email address, although now that we have your contact information here, I'm sure that one of our sales team members will be reaching out to you after this meeting. Um, and as far as price goes, the way that we kind of look at pricing is we understand that, the majority of the markets that we sell to are 3PLs. 3PLs typically have a 3 to 5 year contract with their customers. So it's priced in a way that we ensure that you have a value proposition that is much less than the time frame of that contract with your customers and your clients. And I think, Ryan, in your particular operation, put me on the spot here, but I think you started to see a break-even point under the 1 year mark.
Yep, I think it was at about 7 months.
There you go. So 7 month break even point. So that just goes to show the value that we're bringing is going to offset the cost of the solution.
Brilliant. I think we've got time for just a couple more questions. Neil here's asking, is the solution limited to weight and dimensional metrics of products?
It is. So the Chuck solution has the ability to carry 200 pounds. So that's roughly as a payload of 90 kilos or so. It is the version that Ryan was showing here, I think it's 30 inches wide. So I think that's 76 centimeters. Sorry, my conversion from imperial to metric might not be perfect. And then it is roughly uh, 40 inches long. So you can basically fit something that's 40 inches by 30 inches on the shelf itself. And as far as heights, the chuck is entirely configurable. So it's configurable from a one shelf, which means you have just a base, all the way up to a six shelf version. And that six shelf version, you're able to pick 72 discrete orders on a single run. Um, so really, the size of your product shouldn't be too big of a concern. If you're picking large ski poles, we can always put them up vertically, which we do have a vertical adapter to pick things vertically. It's really the payload that we're more concerned about. And if you do need a payload for a single run that's above that 90 kilo mark, of course, we have Porter that's becoming available towards the end of this year, early next year, and that's capable of lifting 1,600 kilos.
Perfect. I think you've answered our final question here about when Porter's becoming available. So brilliant. You've one step ahead of me there. Perfect. So that brings us to the end of this webinar. I'd like to thank Jeff Larson, Director of Solutions at Ocado Intelligent Automation, and Ryan Hetzler, Director of Operations at Performance Health, for joining us this afternoon. I'd also like to thank Ocado Intelligent Automation for sponsoring today's webinar, which will be available to view on demand soon via logisticsmanager.com, in case you'd like to refer back to the presentation or share it with a colleague. So that's it. We've reached the end of this webinar. Thank you all for attending today's session. I hope to see you all on Wednesday next week for our next Logistics Manager webinar entitled Plug in and Optimize Smarter Picking, Packing and Shipping. You can find more details of this upcoming webinar on logisticsmanager.com. But for now, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.